Hi, Mika here from Superchat, and in today's video we will take a look at how you can prevent multiple automations being triggered at the same time for one and the same conversation. So as always, let's not waste any time and let's get right into it. So yeah, as I said, sometimes it happens that you configured your automation in a way where for some reason multiple automations are triggered for the same contact at the same time, leading to multiple messages from across automations kind of being sent into one and the same conversation, which of course shouldn't happen. This is usually because of how you set up your automations. And this is exactly what we will take a look at today. So here I'm already in our Unified inbox, so let's jump into automations. First of all, the first thing that you can take a look at is whether you have multiple automations configured in a way where they are listening to the exact same message trigger without any additional filters. What do I mean with that? So if you have multiple automations that that are set up in a way with new incoming message where you don't filter within the trigger here by channel type, inbox, whatever, and then also no combination of filter here after the trigger, and you send out a message, hello. And then you might have a second automation, well, let's create it really quick, where you have the exact same setup, new incoming conversation, and here not hello, but AI agent. So of course this will end up in the AI agent responding into the conversation, and the message that we set up from the other automation to be sent in the same automation once a new customer is sending you a message. So here, please always make sure that either you can work with the same triggers across automations, but then these need to work with filters where this one might only be set up for this inbox, the other one for this inbox, or you have any kind of filters applied to right after the trigger if you work with exactly one and the same message trigger across multiple automations. Of course, you can have multiple automations with the manual trigger, with the date time trigger, whatever. But as soon as you have triggers that are based on message triggers, so based on us listening to new incoming messages and then triggering the automation, you need to be very careful that your setup of multiple automations is configured correctly, so that they kind of rule themselves out. One automation is triggered, that another automation isn't. And this you can do very well with our filters, either filters that come right after the trigger, here filter, or conditions we also call them, or by filtering it here right away, like in the trigger itself. Exactly. This is kind of the easy setup that you can already double check to see whether your problem might be that the automations are just misconfigured. The other problem that you might run into is what I brought here, two automations. We will first take a look at them to understand how these work. So pretty simple setup. This automation comes from our automation template gallery, so if it looks interesting to you, take a look. This one is for pretty basic opt-in management for our campaign feature. So like here, this trigger, please don't be confused, I renamed the trigger, but this trigger is the QR code link clicked trigger. And then here we are just listening for new incoming messages that have this very specific keyword to it. So here in the case when contact is messaging us on this channel, exactly the keyword subscribe, like this is, by the way, case insensitive. And then we go this path and send out an opt-in confirmation, and then we add the contact to a contact list. If they send us an unsubscribe keyword, unsubscribe, we go the bottom path here, just sending them an opt-out confirmation, and then we are removing them from the contact list. Pretty straightforward. So here, this is really just like a new incoming message trigger combined with a key, like a message content filter in one. And this is like kind of how the trigger works behind the hood. Then we have a second automation, and this is also very straightforward. It's a custom welcome message. Here we are just listening for the first message of a conversation. So for a contact that never was, in contact with your business, if he messages you for the first time, so the message being the first message of the conversation, we will send out here saying hello and warm welcome, and that's it. So now you might ask yourself, yeah, but like, what's the problem? The problem is when a contact sends you, I think, I did a mistake, 1 sec. I delete this really quick. So the problem being is that if the contact, your customer, is now sending you subscribe, so one of the keywords that we defined here, and he never messaged you before, what will end up happening is both automations are triggered. And in this particular case, we probably don't want this, because here, if the contact now messages you for the first time and he messages you the word subscribe, this automation is triggered, because then we will go this path, and this opt-out confirmation will go out, and we will update the contact we will add the contact to the contact list. And this one is also triggered because it's the first message of the conversation. So now if you take a look, here you can see that this is exactly what happened. Myself wrote the first time, subscribe, which led to both automation being triggered, which is fine because this is kind of how we set it up, but this is probably not what you want. In like this case, I think what makes a lot of sense is if they send you subscribe or unsubscribe, that we then, in this particular case, shouldn't send out the welcome message, but only the opt-in confirmation or opt-out confirmation. So there's an easy way to fix it, and this is not universal, but I show you the easy way first because I think this kind of explains the logic right away without me, making it too complicated. But afterwards, it's like the more universal approach that kind of works, and you can apply it across all automations, independent on how the automation looks like. But now the first one, which is particular to this case, which is very handy for you to kind of understand filters, is now what we want to do is here for the welcome message, we only want to send this out when the other automation is not triggered. A very easy way for us to do it is to add a filter by message content and filter out the keywords we are using in the other automation. So if it equals, subscribe, here again, this is case insensitive, subscribe, and if it's unsubscribe. In these both cases, we don't want to do anything. In all other cases, we want to go here. This leads to now if the contact sends you subscribe or unsubscribe, still the other automation, of course, is being triggered. But then we filter out like these two cases right here without making it too complicated. And only if they send us anything else, which is very likely, then we trigger the welcome message. So now let's test it and see whether it works. So I don't need to adjust anything with the other automation because this stays as it is. Now what ends up happening is I will send subscribe. And it again, remember, we didn't change anything on the opt-in automation, so this is still being triggered as normal. For the other automation, we said, hey, it's still being triggered because the trigger will fire because it's the first message of the conversation. But then we check for the two keywords, and in this case, it's subscribe. And in this case, we are not doing anything, so this automation will stop here. Done. So this is kind of the easy way to fix it. The more universal way to fix it, independent on the message content, is that we can use our filter where we can filter by active other automations. So here again, I can work with a filter, and this filter is called active other automation. Kind of here the logic is, hey, we are triggering this welcome message, and only if the other automation is not running, we are going ahead and triggering this automation and actually send out the welcome message. So here we will say doesn't contain any of, and now the other automation. Let's see if we can find it. I think it's this one. No, it's this one. No, it's this one. So WhatsApp Newsletter Opt-in Manager EN. And this is the other automation that I showed to you earlier. How you kind of read this is now, hey, if for this conversation that we are currently looking at, there are no other active automation, in this case this one, then continue. In all other cases, if this automation is active, then don't do anything. So this will work. We just now need to do one little adjustment, and this is kind of now here, especially like in this case, the complicated part, but it's good because then you understand it. Also for all other use cases. Is the problem now, this like on paper will work, but the problem is both of these automations are like super small. So like the time of like the automation being triggered and being executed, it takes like literally like maybe like a second, maybe 2 seconds max. And this now leads to timing issues, because here in this case, when we check this, the other automation might already be done, or maybe it was a little bit slower in the execution, and then we didn't even get there yet. So therefore, it will work at like 50% of the times. At the other 50%, it might not work just because of this timing issue, because both automations are just so small. In order to fix that, we can just work with our wait pause node. How this works is we just like here add like a pause, just like a very small 5-second pause, where we just wait to really make sure that the other automation is still active. This now leads to the other problem that I just mentioned. Now we can definitely be sure that the other automation is already active, but it might be already the case now that the other automation is already done. So it kind of goes both ways. So we update this first, and in order to fix that, it's pretty easy. We can now just go to the other automation and just make it a little bit longer without really changing it. We can just make it longer by it staying active for a little bit longer. So here we can just add a 10-second pause in both cases. Now what happens is this one is always executed right away in case the contact really writes any of these 2 keywords. We make sure that it's not over within like 1 or 2 seconds. This will help us with the other automation, because here we added this wait pause to make sure really that the other automation is actually already ongoing, just like to make it to be double safe here. And then if the other automation was triggered, then this will fail. And this message will only go out if the other automation is not active. So I updated both, perfect. Now let's test it. I will delete it again here. Let's actually go ahead and delete the entire contact, because I want to show you one more thing. There's too many Mikas in here, so I will delete this entire contact. No proper reason for it. So now I will send yet again subscribe, and I will also show you behind the scenes kind of how this looks like. So here, message received. Perfect. The opt-in automation was triggered right away. The message was sent out. Now, the banner is still active. Why? Because, we added a 10-second pause to the opt-in method at the very end, so it's still active. It just doesn't do anything anymore. And like in a second, it's gone. And now we can take a look at what happened here. So both were still triggered, both of these automations. The custom welcome message one, however, stopped here with that filter. Why? Because the other automation was active. So here it stopped here and then one was completed. Why? Because here in this case, this condition wasn't true, doesn't contain any WhatsApp Newsletter Opt-in Manager EN. Why? Because it was active indeed. So we continued with this step, and this step didn't do anything, so the automation like just ended there. That's it. So exactly, that's it. Definitely a little bit more complicated, but I think the powerful thing is as soon as you understand this kind of, opens a lot of doors and what you can do with automations. Yeah, I hope this was insightful. Hopefully see you very soon. Greetings from Berlin. Bye-bye.